think of Shakespeare and Mark Antony, who I'm going to paraphrase when he said, "We come to praise Sammy, not to bury him." Now, before we celebrate Sammy and Vivian, and in my mind, Sammy and Vivian are always been together and they're always one.
No, they weren't.
In my experience.
You're a baby, that's why.
That's a baby. I just became a taker, actually. I got my Medicare card in the bottom.
Great power!
But before I do that, I want to thank Sammy and Vivian's 4 sons, their assorted wives, girlfriends, grandchildren, for putting on this party and really for bringing us together in a time of celebration and not a funeral, quite frankly. Sammy, I want to thank you for riding that old pony for 90 years. Now, I owe a lot to Sam Berman. And many of you don't know this story, but Sammy came out to Madison and in many ways is responsible for the Rosen family, my family. See, he came out to Madison to go to school when my mother was also his older sister, the sister right above him in the troika of Sammy, Arnold, and Mary, or Mammy, Mary, Sam, and Arnold. She was enrolled to school there. Sammy prized himself on being a great athlete. So I think he came to school. And truth be told, in the Rosen immigrant family, I think he was the best athlete. Now whether that sets a high standard or not, I'll leave that for everybody here to evaluate. But in any case, Sammy goes to try out for the track team. I guess he was what we call a walk-on today. And he goes running, and there's this guy running in front of him whose legs are wild, they're running all outside and inside, he has no form, and he just kicks Sammy's butt. And Sammy looks at this and he says, if I can't compete with this guy, I can't run. I'm no good for this. Well, it turns out, Sammy found out after he quit that he was defeated by Crazy Legs Hirsch. I hope there's a few people old enough to know who have a broad enough view beyond Boston to know who Crazy Legs Hirsch is.
You mean there's another place other than Boston?
And so Sammy gave up his track career, and he ended up actually, fortuitously for us, working at Oscar Mayer, where he was making pretty good money and financing my parents' relationship. And I have this image of Sammy working on the kill floor, getting that big paycheck on Friday, and then handing it over to my mother so her and my father could go to the movies or hang out on Lake Mendota. But the man is really responsible for that relationship in many ways. I don't call it a romance because the romance and my father really never seem to fit in the same sentence. But it worked out. We appreciate you for that, Sam. It worked to my benefit. So Sammy, following that, joined the Army Air Corps. He was with his younger brother, actually several of his brothers, my father and others, and who joined the war to fight fascism. And Sammy himself, I think, flew over 20 missions, bombing missions, 70, okay, over 70 bombing missions in that battle. There's a lot of talk about the greatest generation, and I see there's several people here who are from that greatest generation. And for the younger people, and I include myself in that category, who, when we talk about the greatest generation, in many ways it's been stolen by the right. And they say these guys came home, they suffered the Depression silently, then they went to war and came back and just shut their mouths and went to work. And that's what makes them the greatest generation. And what I think about them as the great generation is that they fought through the Depression. They fought for jobs. They created the National Labor Relations Act, which gave us unions, which gave us the middle class. They set up the Fair Standards Act, which gave us the minimum wage. They established Social Security, which we're all counting on. So when I think about what they've left us as what they've left this country and what they did, it wasn't because they were quiet, but because they raised hell. And Sammy stayed active after the war. He got involved. Again, this is for the younger generation. You can do some homework on this. You have to find out about the Progressive Party. But he got active in the Progressive Party. He was involved, in, as many of you know, writing the song Charlie and the MTA. But many of them, yes. With Arnold, his younger brother, although they didn't make the song famous, I have to say that. But Sammy even wrote a song and sang a song for the last Progressive Party candidate for president. No one knows about this. And I guess he sang it in Boston Symphony Hall, which was his big moment. After the war, Sammy was single, good looking, if you've ever seen the picture in that bomber jacket. And his sister Fran wanted to fix him up. So she invited him to a party where there was a young woman, I think going to art school, named Vivian. So Sammy was going to go, he's going to check this out. But Sammy hedged his bets, so he did show up, but he brought a date with him. There's nothing I can say about that other than it's pretty ballsy. He brought a date with him, and then I guess Vivian sparked some interest. So Sammy says, wait, I'll be back, I'll drop off my date. I have yet to find out if he kissed her goodnight. But he did return, as the song says, he returned. And his fate is well known. Now, Sammy has always been very important to me because we share many of the same values. Sammy has been active in politics for his whole life. And those are progressive values and political activism. And to this day, he remains active, whether it was the Progressive Party, Lexington politics, the Democratic Party. We're still upset that Michael Dukakis did not let him perform that song. And we do believe that the song Sammy wrote for Dukakis may have meant that Reagan would have been defeated. A love for athletic competition. For God's sake, Sammy is falling off of ladders at 80. And bungee jumping at 80. Bungee jumping at 80. There's a love for travel. He loves to travel with Vivian, and they just went and came back from Cuba, and we're all excited to hear about that. And of course, one thing I share with Sammy is attention deficit disorder. I do believe I drive better than Sammy does. During the last 2 years, Gloria and I have visited Sammy and Vivian during the summer in Gloucester. Words can't express to us how much those visits have meant. Digging for mussels, climbing rocks, drinks before dinner, sunsets. Sammy and Vivian, you actually make Gloria and I feel like adults when we visit you. And we want to thank you for sharing your lives with us for so many years. So here's to my uncle blood on the saddle, Sammy. You've been riding that old pony for 90 years. The saddle may be worn out, but keep on riding, Sammy. We love you.